My wife came home smiling after meeting her boyfriend, but I made a move that left her full of regret. My name is James, and I live in a quiet suburb of San Diego, California. This story is about betrayal and how I dealt with it. It started with an instinct. It always does, doesn't it? An unnoticeable change in tone. A strange softness in her voice when she'd say, "I'll be out for lunch with a friend." It was the kind of softness you only recognize if you'd heard the rougher edges before, the ones you believed you had smoothed over with years of dedication. My wife Emery and I had been wed for about 9 years. 9 years of sharing coffee in the mornings, whispering dreams, and the quiet understanding that comes from knowing someone so completely. I thought we were unshakable. We had our disagreements, but who didn't? I considered it the normal wear and tear of daily life. That was before the late-night text message I accidentally saw while her phone rested on the sofa beside me. "Can't stop thinking about today," the message said. It was from a number I didn't recognize. When I asked her about it, she dismissed it with a nervous chuckle. "It's nothing. Just a group chat. You know how girls are." I nodded but didn't press further. That night, lying in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, I knew something was wrong. Weeks later, when her lunch dates became more frequent and her excuses more vague, I decided to take action. I'm not proud of it, but I went through her phone one afternoon when she left it unattended. The texts I found were not suggestive, they were explicit. Her friend was someone named Leo, and based on their conversations, the lunch dates were much more than a quick meal and simple conversation. I felt a rush of disgust and rage followed by a crushing wave of humiliation. My wife, my Emery, was having an affair, and it wasn't just a fling. These weren't messages of simple physical attraction. They were filled with emotional closeness, the kind of bond we used to have, the kind I believed was still ours. For a week, I carried the knowledge in silence, trying to figure out what to do. Confront her, pack my bags and leave, or beg her to explain. I did none of those things. Instead, I did something I've never done in my life. I planned my revenge carefully and methodically. It started with research. Through a few social media searches, I found that Leo was a colleague of hers, a sales representative for a business she'd collaborated with on a project. He was also married. I found his wife, Cora, on social media. She was a petite brunette, with kind eyes and 2 young children. My heart ached for her, but my sympathy didn't stop me from moving forward. The plan came together faster than I expected. First, I hired a private investigator, a grizzled man named Robert who had a face like a bulldog and a no-nonsense demeanor. Robert's photos confirmed everything. There were pictures of them leaving a hotel together, arms touching, faces lit up with laughter. He'd even captured a shot of them kissing in her car. Proof. Hard, undeniable proof. Next, I contacted Cora. My message was simple. "Hi, Cora, this is going to be hard to hear, but I believe your husband Leo is having an affair with my wife." "Emery, I've attached photos." "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this." Her response came an hour later. It was a single sentence: "Thank you for telling me." The plan was in motion now, and I was no longer in control of where it would end. But I had one last move to make. I wanted Emery to see what her betrayal had done, to feel the weight of her choices. So I invited her to lunch. "Let's have a date," I said, forcing a smile. "Just the 2 of us. We haven't done that in a while." She seemed relieved, almost eager. Perhaps she thought my sudden attentiveness was a sign I suspected nothing. Little did she know it was the calm before the storm. The day of the lunch arrived. I prepared the table meticulously, a crisp white tablecloth, our finest silverware, and 2 glasses of wine. On the surface, it looked like an attempt to revive our romance. In reality, it was a stage and the centerpiece. Wasn't flowers, but a manila envelope filled with every damning piece of evidence Robert had collected. Emery walked in smiling, her cheeks flushed from her supposed lunch date. She stopped cold when she saw the table, her eyes darting from the envelope to me. "What's this?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't answer. I just gestured for her to sit. Reluctantly she did, her smile now a shadow of what it had been moments before. I slid the envelope across the table. "Open it," I said. She hesitated, then complied. Her jaw tightened as she went through the photos and printouts of text messages. "I can explain," she stammered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Explain?" I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Explain what?" "That you've been lying to me for months? That you've been sneaking around with a married man?" that you've been treating our marriage like it's worthless." Tears welled in her eyes. "It's not like that," she whispered. "Then what is it like, Emery?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been having your cake and eating it too," she broke down sobbing, mumbling apologies that meant nothing. I let her cry, let her wallow in the mess she'd created. When she finally looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, I dropped the next bombshell. "I've spoken to Cora," I said, her eyes widened in horror. "You what?" "She knows everything, just like I do. You've destroyed not one but two families, Emery. Congratulations." At that moment there was a knock at the door. Emery's head whipped around, her expression a mix of fear and confusion. I stood and opened it to reveal Cora. She stepped inside, her face calm, but her eyes blazing with rage. And behind her, Leo Emery's face went pale. "What is this?" she whispered. "This," I said, "is closure." The confrontation that followed was ugly. Cora unleashed years of pent-up frustration on Leo, who stood there stammering like a fool. Emery tried to intervene, but Cora turned on her with the ferocity of a lioness. "Don't you dare try to justify this," she snarled. "You're a selfish, deceitful." The words she used weren't fit for polite company. Leo finally tried to defend himself, spewing some nonsense about feeling unappreciated at home. I cut him off. "Unappreciated?" I laughed bitterly. "You've got two beautiful children and a wife who'd move heaven and earth for you, and this is how you repay her?" By the end of it, everyone's emotions were frayed. Emery and Leo looked like broken shells of the people they were when they walked in. Cora and I exchanged a look, a silent recognition that we both emerged stronger. The consequences were swift. Emery packed her belongings and relocated that evening. I filed for divorce the next day. Cora did the same. Leo lost his job when Cora sent their employer copies of the evidence. Emery's reputation took a nosedive as word of the affair spread among our friends and family. They had no one to blame but themselves. As for me, I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep and mornings when getting out of bed felt impossible. But with time, the anger faded, replaced by a quiet resolve to rebuild my life. I started counseling, took up jogging, and reconnected with old friends. A year later, I'm happier than I've been in years. I've learned to value myself, to demand honesty and respect from the people in my life. Emery and Leo, last, I heard their relationship didn't survive the burden of the guilt. Revenge may not be the healthiest of motivations, but sometimes it's the trigger we need to reclaim our power. And reclaim it I did. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us here on Home Exposed for more unbelievable Reddit stories every day.